What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Jose Show. Happy Tuesday. Now, let's talk about yesterday because yesterday was a really historical day. Well, Blue Origin sent a group of women to the final frontier, and TMZ streamed it live as Gayle King, Katy Perry, and Lauren Sanchez blasted off into space and returned to Earth Monday morning. So, the girl gang includes NASA rocket scientist Aisha Bowe, civil rights activist Amanda Gwynn, and film producer Carrie Ann Flynn. At 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time sharp, the ramp and scaffolding detached from Jeff Bezos' rocket, the New Shepard Van Horn in West Texas. A minute later, the rocket launched successfully at 9:38 a.m. After reaching its apogee, the rocket began its descent back down. By 9:39 a.m., the rocket executed a picture-perfect landing back on Earth, directly on the spot from where it launched. Then the capsule, still airborne, deployed its parachutes. As it floated down at 9:41 a.m., the capsule landed in the dirt. Alright, so Bezos himself was there on the ground to help open the capsule door and greet the returning new space travelers, embracing Sanchez as she emerged first. Katy came out next and literally kissed the ground. Alright, so in the observation area prior to the launch, some celebrities were seen attending, including Kris Jenner, Khloe Kardashian, and Oprah Winfrey, and of course Katy's boo, Orlando Bloom. Okay, so back on the ground, Sanchez was emotional, describing the trip, enthusiastically describing her complete and utter joy and gratefulness, saying she wanted to hug everyone. She emoted, "I had to come back. I mean, we're getting married." Okay, so Gayle said the flight instructor told her I'm her best success story because she overcame a severe fear of flying to take part in Monday's mission. She said she feels like she can take on anything after stepping out of her comfort zone, more than she ever thought possible. Okay, so Monday's mission, dubbed NS-31, is the 11th human flight for Blue Origin and the 31st overall for the Amazon Founder Space Tourism venture. So this is amazing that Gayle King, Katy Perry, and the rest of these women were going all the way up to space, because that just came to show that they finally got to reach their goal, and especially for Katy Perry, because Katy Perry has always dreamed of going all the way up to space, starting off with the fact that she did write a song about space called E.T. anyways. And by the way, Gayle King, I am so proud of her because she got to finally face her fears and going all the way up to space, because now she is a better person. Now she is able to do more things, and she even said so herself. And I think that in life, you have to face your fears in order to do more things in life anyways. Okay, so there's that. And by the way, never would I expect for all of these women to go all the way up to space, because I mean, we're talking about space. We're talking about a whole different universe. Now, I really want to ask these women how it really felt being on space, because I mean, just having to imagine having to be by all of those stars and having to look at planet Earth and having to look at many other planets in space, man. And I was even feeling nervous, by the way, for all of these women that were going all the way up to space, because you know, I just had these thoughts that the rocket was gonna break, or that the rocket was gonna explode or something like that. And thank God none of those things happen, you know. Thank God that the rocket is perfectly fine and it's actually safe to travel in. And I think that now that Katy Perry and Gayle King and of course Lauren Sanchez and the rest of these women got to be going all the way up to space, I believe it will really motivate them to probably, I don't know, write a book about going up into space and, you know, talk about it. And maybe, I don't know, they might have already studied a few planets here and there when they were up in space for only 11 minutes, and maybe they were like, oh my god, well, maybe Venus has more life than planet Earth, or maybe Saturn has more life than planet Earth, or maybe Mars has more life than planet Earth, and maybe humans can also live in these planets, and maybe these planets are way nicer anyways, so let's write that in our book as well. You know, like, I can already sense that it could be the case, because I mean, we as human beings here in planet Earth, we are just sitting here assuming that planet Earth is the only planet to live in throughout the whole entire universe, but it's because we don't know any of the other planets, because we've never been to space in our lives. So anyways, another thing that I have to say about this is I am just so darn stunned about the fact that Oprah Winfrey did not go up into space with Gayle King, because I think that since Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King are besties, they should have been together, okay? And Oprah especially should have been there to support Gayle King and make sure that Gayle King is perfectly fine. But I mean, Oprah, I believe, was all like, oh, hell nah, girl, you're gonna be going up into space on your own. I am not gonna be going up there. I am afraid of going all the way up there. And I believe same with Khloe Kardashian too, and Kris Jenner. But honestly, if Khloe Kardashian and Kris Jenner would have been all the way up into space, I'm sure that those women, would have learned a thing or two about space instead of learning a thing or two about their family drama on a daily basis. Because I think that would definitely distract them, and I'm sure that maybe they would even put it in the reality show anyways, having to go all the way up into space. And hey, I would definitely be here for watching all of that on the Kardashians. So there's also that. But anyways, I am so happy for all of these women that they were able to make it all the way up into space, and they were able to get a good glimpse, at least for 11 minutes, on how space looks like. And maybe it'll motivate them into going into space more often from now on. Who knows? All right, now on to the next topic. Now let's talk about Sean Kingston. So Sean Kingston gets to finally post $100,000 bond and is finally out of jail. Well, he's back to home detention with GPS monitoring and is required to surrender his passport. So Sean Kingston was in lockup Tuesday because he couldn't cough up that $100,000 cash bond tied to his federal wire fraud case. Now Kingston, who got hit with the guilty verdict last month alongside his mom Janice Turner on all 5 charges, is now sitting tight at the federal detention center in Miami, TMZ has learned. So following his conviction last month, he was confined to home detention pending sentencing on the condition he could post $100,000 cash bond. But now that the singer and rapper is unable to come up with the money, he's been taken into custody. So as TMZ reported, Sean and his mom were accused of scamming businesses out of more than $1 million in a fraud scheme with jewelry, luxury cars, and other high-end goods. So prosecutors say Sean and Janice scored over $1 million in property through their scheme, ripping off a car dealer for $160,000, Cadillac Escalade, and jewelers for $480,000 in bling, all without coughing up a cent. So the feds raised Sean's Florida mansion in May of 2024, and it wasn't long before they were both arrested. Now they're each staring down up to 20 years in prison for every single count they were convicted on. Okay, so this is really insane. I think that Sean Kingston and his mom, Janice Turner, got to do all of this fraud schemey stuff because they both don't have any money. Because I can imagine that Sean Kingston is having a really bad time financially since he does not have one hit of a song anymore like he did way back in the day. And I believe that since he hasn't had a hit in years, I think that there are many other alternatives that he can take in order to make money instead of causing these illegal situations to happen. And it's just so sad, though, that he won't come up with these alternative things and then making money legally, by the way, because he Hello was a really good role model to so many kids, so many teenagers out there that were looking up to him way back in the day, especially when he got to release that song Beautiful Girl way back in like 06, 07. And he was a really good boy. He was, up to no trouble. And now all of a sudden it's like things really got in a whole opposite turn for him and his mom, where now they are only caring about stealing stuff and scamming and so because of the fact that they want the sake of having luxuries for their own home instead of having to really work hard for what they should be having. And it's so sad that now they're going to be spending up to 20 years in prison because of all of that now they're not going to be able to enjoy life like they have been. They're not going to be able to, know how it's like to breathe fresh air. They're not going to be able to know what it's like to talk to other people outside of prison and, enjoy, looking at nice faces here and there. Now they're going to be in a prison cell surrounded by so many bad people that can harm them for the rest of their life, by the way, because we're talking about 20 years. And you know what? The next thing we know is Sean Kingston is going to be even more forgotten than he already has been because of the fact that he's going to be in prison for a very long time. So, with all of that being said, I think that if Sean Kingston really didn't want to put himself in this case, then he should have not done any of these things in the first place, of course. But anyways, it really does take a huge obsession for having luxuries in order to be doing schemy things like this. Because, of course, when you are obsessed, you are completely psycho to the point that you don't even care if you're breaking the law. You will just get what you want. And that's exactly the case what happened with Sean Kingston and, of course, with his mom. And by the way, we're talking about almost a year ago when they both got arrested and raided in their Florida mansion. And it must have been a very scary situation having to be surrounded by the feds and having to get caught doing a situation like this. But I mean, they got what they deserved after all, and I feel so bad for them, but it is what it is at the end of the day, and oh well. But anyways, on to the next topic. Now let's talk about Savannah Chrisley. So Savannah Chrisley just got extremely candid about her breakup with Robert Shiver, putting a lot of the blame for the split on his estranged wife, Lindsay Shiver, who is also accused of plotting his murder. So apparently, the Chrisley Knows Best star and Shiver first went public with a relationship in September of 2023, with Savannah revealing on a new episode of her Unlocked with Savannah Chrisley podcast titled I Was Dumped that he broke up with her on March 6th. So he got to say, "It sucks, it hurts, it's been about a month and a half since Robert and I broke up." So there it is, Robert and I broke up on March 6th. She began at the top of the show. Not that I'm keeping track of dates or anything, but I have taken a lot of time to process things and truly grieve the loss of the relationship that I thought was going to be where I was for the rest of my life. Okay, so she explained that it sucks even more because there are children involved, as Shiver and his estranged wife share 3 sons. The split, she said, means she's also grieving loss of the relationship that you have with those children. Okay, so anyways, Fortunately, the conversations with the kids haven't stopped, which is such a weird place to be in. But when I got into a relationship with Robert, I also got into a relationship with his kids, and I vowed to always show up, always be there, and I was not going to be another disappointment for them because they've had a lot, added Chrisley, who said she will always be there for the boys regardless of where she stands with their father. Alright, so anyways, Chrisley then revealed that Lindsay was a serious pain point in the relationship as much as she didn't want to admit it. So this is really insane. I think that it's just so interesting that Savannah Chrisley is still talking to the kids, even though, of course, the breakup happened. But I do think that if Savannah Chrisley really felt really traumatized and she felt really emotionally abused by being in a relationship like this, where she felt like she was being threatened, or she felt like she was just, not feeling significant enough for her significant other, then she had all of the right of the world to leave that relationship. Because if Savannah Chrisley would have continued off with this relationship, then Savannah Chrisley would have continued to still get emotionally distressed, and of course she would have gone through so much anxiety, and then the next thing you know it, she would have ended up in a psychiatric hold, and I'm not even exaggerating. And it's just so sad though that Savannah Chrisley would be in a relationship like this, considering that she was already going through enough with her parents going to prison at the time, because her parents, as we all know, are attending prison for like 12 years now. And it's just so darn sickening, and it's just so darn scary. And now for her to be going through a situation like this is just making matters worse. So anyways, it's just so darn scary too at the same time that, there was just so many drama going on. There was just so much disagreements going on. There was just so much of the he said, she said situations going on, especially with a bunch of tabloids going around about the relationship that was evolving over Savannah Chrisley and of course this guy Shiver, because now it was like, okay, well, now these people are the center of attention. Now these are the people that are of course going through weird drama that is just so darn ridiculous, and these are the people that of course are not really the people that we should be looking up to, and it's just more and more conflict from there, so it's just not just a bad thing in terms of Savannah Chrisley's emotional situation being in that relationship, but it was also a bad thing for her in a spotlight imagey way. So anyways, I'm so glad that Savannah Chrisley left that relationship because of those things, okay? But anyways, that is it for today's show, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's lovely episode of The Jose Show. Till next time, and peace.